We're so glad you're here with us, and we'd like you to join us on our very first sing-along song. And just to help those who may not be able to see the screen over here, we do have the lyrics printed in your program. So you have your choice of either looking at the screen or looking at your lyrics. Please stand up and join us in Holy, Holy Way.
One of your staff ministers, and we would like to thank you for bringing into our atmosphere of worship the gift of your presence here this morning. It's here on Sundays that we get to experience more of the divine life, and we do that through the words that we hear in the music, the message, and the fellowship that we have with each other. So we're delighted you're here. We're going to get started this morning in the celebration of lighting the flames of faith. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of compliance with the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the candle for all forms of new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And as practitioner Aidan lights the last candle, let it represent the path that brought you here this morning. And won't you now join me in this affirmative prayer? And know as I speak my word for myself that I'm speaking it for each one of you. Let us recognize that there is one life, the life of God. I recognize this magnificence, this truth that this one life, this essence of love that permeates through all things, through all time, through all beings, through all space. It permeates through me too. And so I know that it permeates through this word. I know that there is a revelation taking place in my own mind. That this one life is a life of wholeness. It's a life of good. And it's a life that I choose to be in. It's a revelation in my own mind because I know that I am born in the image and the likeness of the one divine power of spirit. I know that there is a perfect patterning of this divine spirit within me. That each and every moment, if I'm tuned in and I'm present, I am reminded of this greatness of who I am. And so I step into my truth. I step into this wholeness. I step into the power of the one mind. I recognize that my life is a life of vibrant health. My life is a life of great success in all that I do and all that I endeavor, because God's right by my side. My life is filled with marvelous relationships, people that I love and that I feel nurtured by and nurture them. My life is filled with the perfect self-expression of God itself on the Most High. And I give such great thanks for this. Such great thanks. I know that each and every day is an opportunity for my mind to reveal something that is true in my heart. And so I allow the two to come together and to bring me on a path of God's everlasting, magnificent beauty. And as I release this word, as I know it for myself, I know it for each one of you, I know that life is in its perfect, perfect place. And so it is. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Reverend Judy up to the platform to read us our Declaration of Principles and our affirmation.
Thank you. Okay, so let's do our Declaration of Principles together as we read together. I believe in God, the one creative intelligence, operating through the universe and operating throughout my entire being, now and always. I believe this perfect spirit operates upon a law of mind and creates my experience exactly according to my belief. I believe this perfect creative intelligence can be used by me and by every other person to produce health, abundance, and love in mind, body, and total life experience. I use it now, and I rejoice in it, and so it is. And now let's read our affirmation together. I am unified, divine mind and divine body, health, wealth, radiating love, and creatively are mine to be embraced and expressed in every moment. I declare for myself fullness and plenty, wholeness and completeness in every aspect of my life and living, and in all creation. And so it is.
Thank you so much, Reverend Judy. And please welcome our soloist today, Mary Ann Lewis.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So good to see you all be here this morning, celebrating the Spirit. This is an original song that came out of this work in the classes that I was in, and it's called Truth Revealed. It's like a prayer to song. So soul creating each cloud. It's the breath that makes us whole. No, it's the source of all the tree. It's the It's already been given. Oh, that's in your heart. Believe it right where you are. That's where you start. Release the reasons your dreams can become reality. And let the spirit move you. Reclaim your majesty and be free. We are free. Let yourself be free. We just let the spirit be free. All the joy, compassion, and love is yours with the vision to see. All of the powers within you, open and let it come through. And claim it, just know it, and know it. Just claim it, just know it, and so it is. Hey, baby. It needs to listen. I just speak my word and I rest my hand upon the shoulders and the wings of the spirit within. The kingdom is ours. It's already been given. It's already been everything in your heart, believe it right where you are. That's where you start. Release the reasons you dream can become reality. And let the spirit move you. Reclaim your majesty and be
Good morning. Good morning. Our program and our talk titles all say that this this message this morning is Our Healer. It isn't. It never was. If you look in the book for an essay called Our Healer, you won't find it. But if you look in the book for one healer, you will find it. And that was, so someone wrote one and they wrote it messily and it looked like our. Anyway, but it works out really well for us because we are going to start my message with a prayer wall. So practitioners, if you would come forward. And what we're going to do is we're going to be available for prayer. We're going to have 5 minutes only to do this. So, so come on up and so everyone get in place. I'll come down here in just a second. And, all right, so we're open for business. When you come forward, please say who you are and what you want prayer about.
practitioners. That was beautiful. Thank you. Everyone is blessed by prayer. Everyone is blessed by the one healer, whether the prayer was for you or for someone else. And for those of you who did not partake of prayer, thank you for holding that high watch, that high consciousness, that place where you know all is well, and where you allow the Spirit to continuously move. It is so good. It is so good. Today my message is all about Fred. Well, different Freds. The one healer that is God within, the dear and glorious physician within, I've seen the result of this one by a few friends. First of all, I'll talk about what happens with me before service. And oh, thank God, I've got a lovely new office just steps away. So, your shortcut is not available now. You have to go around and get to know people as you're walking around, but that's good. And what happens to me before service is I have a spiritual mind treatment of prayer specifically for me. And today it was Fred Mercado that did that, and it was so beautiful to have the experience of being prayed for and know that everything that follows is good and very good, because that is what happens with prayer. And the second Fred I'd like to talk about is Fred Rogers. How many of you have not seen yet Won't You Be My Neighbor? You have not seen it. Go see it. It is the most beautiful, wonderful movie. You will be moved, touched, and inspired. It's an inspiring movie of an inspiring man, and I didn't know. I wasn't really in the era because my little sister was in the era, but I don't ever remember her watching him. And it was PBS, and we might not have gotten PBS in Canada at that time. It might have had to be one of our two channels that we got, CBC or CTV. Anyway, what the man was an amazing minister. And he actually was going to be a minister. He was going to study for the ministry, Presbyterian ministry, and he went home from college and he saw he saw a television. And he saw what was being shown on television. And he said, no. Because what he saw were people being slapstick comedy with people having pies thrown in their faces, where people were not respected, where they were not valued. And he said, no, I'm going to have produce. His first idea was he was going to produce a show for children that was respectful, that was loving, that was kind. And at first he played piano, he was a wonderful musician, and he wasn't really, but even the very first show, something happened that there was a delay, and so he had a little puppet, a little doll puppet, a tiger, and he popped the tiger through the paper clock, and the tiger started talking. Of course, it was Fred talking, giving all sorts of really authentic advice that children needed to be able to hear. And it is so moving. When I walked in, I'm always early for movies if I can be, and so got my place. There were lots of seats around me, and then a woman came, and there were seats on both sides of me. I was sitting sort of in the middle of the second row, so got a nice view of the screen. A woman came, sat beside me. She said, "Is it okay if I sit here?" And I said, "Sure." And then a few minutes later, someone came down and sat beside her, and she moved to the other side of me. Thought, okay, she wants to sit by me, but she doesn't want to sit by them. And it was kind of a little disconcerting at first. And I had my purse on that side, and I was so involved in the movie, I looked down and my purse wasn't there. And she could see that she said, "It fell to the floor, it's okay." And then we both stayed for everything, including the credits. And I was deeply moved. And one of the things that Fred Rogers quoted was my favorite book, The Little Prince, where The Little Prince says, what is essential to the heart is invisible. What is essential to the heart is invisible. And Mr. Rogers quotes that. And he also quoted something I didn't even recognize what language it was. Tikkun Olam is Hebrew, and it means heal the world. And the reason I know this is the woman that God put beside me was Jewish. And she told me, she said, and do you know what it means? I said, no, what does it mean? And she told me, and it was interesting. Then we exchanged names, and then I hugged her. I mean, it was just that kind of atmosphere where you know who you are makes a difference. You know that the love that you are makes a difference. The kindness that you give to others makes a difference. Mr. Rogers' kindness not only made a difference to the children in that studio, but he got the $20 million funding when President Reagan was going to President Nixon was going to cut the funding for PBS. He testified, and he was a lifelong Republican. It wasn't that. It was not that. He was a lifelong registered Republican. But he spoke about why these children needed to hear that they were unique. There was nobody else like them. And so he quoted one of his songs. And Senator, now I've forgotten his name, didn't mean anything to me, but anyway, the senator that was in charge of those hearings listened to him and he said, Mr. Rogers, you have the funding, $20 million, which was very, very moving. Moving because he was just giving of himself in a way that was so authentic, so sweet, so kind, and all of us can be that. So really, our healer that is within us, the one healer, is always healing. And it's always with you, just like who does these? Who arranges for someone to sit right beside me that speaks Hebrew? I mean, I don't know if the people on the other side were also able to speak, but she did. And it was just great. The person who put the notes together for today's message is my wonderful friend, Moira Fox. Hence the long, long, long affirmation, but great affirmation. And so this comes to the third Fred. What she did, because remember last week I told you that we're looking at this book, at the essays in this book, and the shortest message was last week. It was 3/4 of a page. No, the next shortest message was this week. One healer is about the same length. So isn't that great that we got our practitioners on the day that our healer, really one healer, was? Frederick Bales, she was quoting. Frederick Bales is a longtime metaphysician, I think long gone, but I don't know exactly when. Prolific writer, much like Ernest Holmes. And he had steps for prayer and visioning. 7 R's. 7 R's. Now, that could sound a little crass, but I am going to say that. So Thursday, I was helping the movers move, and I was pretending to be a teenager. I was pretending I was 15, so I was running up and down the steps. I mean, must have made 30 trips up and down the steps, maybe more. And that night, I couldn't find a comfortable spot because I can't sleep on my stomach. And my butt was so sore. And it was so sore the next day, and so sore the next day. And what I do for exercise, and I do it weekly, 4 times a week, is called step aerobics, where you go up and down steps. You would think I'd be able to go up and down those stairs with ease and grace, which I did, but I suffered some consequences of it. Okay, so back to Dr. Bales'
7 stages. And one of the reasons I say this is I am previewing some brand new curriculum. And it begins by saying there are 5 steps to prayer, and that's the way we usually teach it. Ernest Holmes did not teach that. He taught 1 or 3 or 2. He did not teach 5 steps, so if your teacher ever tells you that in the science of mind there are 5 steps to treatment, no, that's just a tool we use to teach you how to pray. So I'm going to teach you the other tool, Frederick Bale's tool, the 7 R's. The first R, and I love this one, I haven't thought of it before, is relaxation. So you start by letting go of any fear or worry and relaxing the body and the mind. Relaxation. That sounds like a pretty sensible thing to do when you're praying. And the second thing to do is our first step, usually, is recognition. And what are you recognizing? You're recognizing the power and the presence of this one mind, the mind of God, of this one life, the life of infinite intelligence and divine love. It's a very important step. And the third R, I love this, and it's the same as one of our steps, but he calls it relationship. Relationship, it's relationship with what? With that same God that you just recognized. That you are in relationship because you are one with. Relating to as that thing itself. Relationship. And then he goes into realization. Realization. That, and what you're realizing is the good that you want, the good that you're claiming. I know that the good might be personal. It might be something for a family. It might be about your physical body or your emotional body. Or the good might be something to do with your finances or your creative expression or your fulfillment in life. But whatever good it is that you're claiming, that's where you claim it. And the next star, which might be number 5, is reasoning. Reasoning. So this is the place where he would use the denial step. And the denial step is simply, if you are convinced that something is too big to handle, well, number 1, there's nothing too big for God to handle. And that's what you do in the denial step. You say, this cannot be true of God, so it cannot be true of me or my client or whatever. And so, reasoning. And then the last R, and again, I like this, it's the same idea, but it's rejoicing. Rejoicing. So how grateful you are and glad you are and celebratory you are for the good that you've just claimed, because you know that this one power in you are connected, so it has to already be so. Rejoicing. There's an old hymn I used to, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. I've never brought a sheaf in my life, but I knew that song, the rejoicing part of, life is so good. Life is so good. Right now, we rejoice in its goodness. And regardless of what's going on around us, we look for the good and we rejoice in that. Rejoicing. I heard this story recently about mistaking signs. There was a woman was stopped by a police officer, and she had several other elderly women in her car. And the officer stopped. She said, "What's wrong, officer?" She said, "Well, ma'am, you're going very slowly." She said, "Yes, 35. He said, "Well, this is a freeway." And she said, "Well, the sign says 35. And she said, "Oh, I thought that was," he says, "that's the highway number. It's not the speed limit." He said, "By the way, why are all your passengers why do they look so terrified?" She says, "Well, we just got off the 110. Misreading signs, misreading signs. If something looks like it's troubling, doesn't mean that there isn't something there that needs addressing. Ernest Holmes says throughout the textbook, we do not deny the appearance of evil. What we deny is any reason for it to stay as part of our experience. Again, it isn't the truth of God. So it can't be the truth of us. Cannot be the truth of us. There's something our Irish people will be familiar with the Celts. And Reverend Dr. Moira is Irish, and she refers to an ancient Celtic practice and of Anam Cara. Anam Cara. And Anam Cara is a soul friend. A soul friend. Originally, it would be that person to whom you revealed your secrets, told your life's soul story to, would speak the truth to. And Dr. Moira points out that that's what our practitioners do. They become your soul friend in the way that they do not judge. They simply listen, see past whatever the story is, to the truth, to the wholeness that you are, to the power that you are, to the goodness that you are, to the health and prosperity that you are. All of us are healthy, prosperous, joyful, beloved expressions of the one. And what I know is, and I know it from the prayer wall, and I know it just from life, is that last night some of you cried yourself to sleep, or someone you know or care about cried themselves to sleep. So I'm not saying that there isn't pain or sadness or sorrow. There is. And there are answers for all of that. There are divine answers everywhere. Open your mind, open your heart. Say yes to living this life, this beautiful life, with love. So in this holy moment of now, what I know and I know is that truly all is well. All is well everywhere, for everyone, all the time. And life is good and very good. I hope you take yourselves to the moon. It's a really good thing to do when it's so cold, when it's so hot out.
Yes.
And I've given you a really high recommendation. I might go see it again because it was so good. But more than that, I trust that your respect for other people is just like Mr. Rogers. He really, without being an obvious activist and kind of disrespectful and annoying, he spoke his beliefs in his actions with the children. So for instance, during the height of segregation, when white racists were saying no, African Americans cannot swim in the same pool, he had the police officer on the show, who definitely wasn't a police officer in real life, the actor played police officer African American, sit with him and put their feet in a pool together. Said, it's a hot day in Naples. Doesn't it feel good to soak your feet in the cool water? He didn't have to say. The children watching that saw this is a person that accepts everybody, just the way we are and just the way we are not. Actions. Your actions, my actions. They make a difference. Choose good thoughts and right actions will follow. That is the way it is. You are all practitioners, the way Dr. Holmes wrote about it, because anyone who practices the science of mind is a practitioner. Okay. And you're enough. You're making a difference right here. I'm grateful for you. I haven't done this for a long time, but anyway, when one bows, it says the word namaste. What it really means is the God in me sees and knows the God in you. And it's actually even bigger than that. It's like when I'm in the place of knowing the God in me, I easily see and know the God in you. Namaste. Namaste. And so it is. And so we'll pray together. I'm going to pray in the first person, which we've been doing, which is lovely. I'm going to pray in the first person for each one. And this is what I know for certain. I know that prayer is always healing, is always doing the work of the divine mind, the spirit within. And so what I know for certain is that there really is only one life. It's God's life. It's whole, complete, and perfect. It is that source of health that is God in expression. It is the source of supply. And I know that that energy of life itself, which is the energy of love, flows through every cell, every tissue, every function, every fiber of my body, of my emotions, of my spiritual body, of my relational body. I know that that spirit within heals all. That any aspect within myself that needed to be revealed as the wholeness that it is now revealed completely, fully and completely revealed. That I am enough right now. I'm enough in my body temple. I'm enough in my relationships. I'm enough in my finances. And I'm enough in my creative expression. That there is so much good for me, and I ought to have it, and I do have it. I refuse to see lack or limitation in myself or in anyone else. I should see through the eyes of kindness, through the eyes of respect, and through the eyes of possibility. I see God's perfect world in its perfection. I see wholeness for each and every one. I see prosperity for each and every one. I see freedom for each and every one. It's good and very good, and I'm so grateful for knowing the truth. Grateful, I simply rejoice in this knowingness. God is, I am, and so it is.
And so it is.
And now, Marianne Lewis.
Goodness. Oh, you guys have to just be with me for a moment. Thank you so much. And, you know, I feel like something's birthing through me, you know, and sometimes in those moments, it's like there's a little uncomfortability and just the prayer wall and the vibration, and Mr. Rogers. It just reminded me of how, you know, watching Mr. Rogers of growing up, how the seeds that he planted, and to hear about kindness and to hear about love and acceptance and And it just makes me think about all that we do and the prayers that we pray and the way we come together and how important that is. Creating a vibration that opens us up. And that's how I feel right now. It's just opened up to move through and to continue to be a beneficial presence, you know. So thank you. You anointed me. So I share this song that is of a friend, Eric Peterson. I open up to your prayers for the high notes. You anointed me with your spirit, and you anointed me with your love, and you cast away all these chains. You set my spirit free. You anointed me. You supplied all that I need, and you showed me it's all inside of me. Yes, it is. All the love and all the power and all the peace is there for me to see. You anointed me. You anointed me by giving me peace now, and you anointed me by giving me hope. You anointed me by giving me time to learn to love, time to learn what I know I believe. You anointed me.
last week I told a personal story about the presence being through my body from about this much above my head, right through my toes for a week. And I could see your aura, so I know that the Spirit was with you as you were singing that. You are anointed. Let's give her another. This is time for us to give back and to share our gifts, our tithes, our offerings. And so if the stewards would come forward, I'm going to just tell a personal something as you're coming forward, just short. So I complained about a mortgage that I had. Complained a lot. I'm sorry, God. And so this last week I got a settlement check from some processing center for $1,200. So thank you, God, for that horrible. There's always something good everywhere. We're willing to wait and find it. Okay, so we're going to read our prosperity affirmation together, and then a few seconds of being grateful in the silence, and then we'll sing Blessed Always, and then I know that there's a special something coming after that. All right. My offering is my acceptance of God as the source of my supply and symbolizes my faith in the abundant flow of this supply.
We have come with open hearts, all as the ancient words impart. Holy words of loving peace echo through this world we know, soothing hearts and soothing minds, the sound of ancient words through time. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts, all as the ancient words impart. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts, all as the ancient words impart. We have come with open hearts, all as the ancient words impart. All as the ancient words impart. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, ladies. That was really beautiful. Oh, lost my sound. Well, it was really beautiful. And what a perfect song for today. I'd like to acknowledge those of you who are in service today. Service is a spiritual practice. So if that's you, would you please stand so we can give you a lot of love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your givingness means more than you'll ever know. And the people who are remaining standing are practitioners trained in the art and science of affirmative prayer. If you want your life transformed, you're getting the message really clearly today, make an appointment and see one of these wonderful people. You will be so happy you did. And today in service, we have Con Smith, Aidan Breedy, Patrick Freeman, and Reverend Judy Chapman. Let's acknowledge our practitioners. And if you are visiting us for the very first time, we have a little gift for you, and just need to raise your hand or stand up. If you pop up, we'll be so happy. So just stand. So happy you're here. Happy you're here. Please, one's willing to do it. So many are willing to do it. Okay, and now we're going to affirm you. So just remain standing. Please repeat after me. Welcome to our community.
Welcome to our community.
We know who you are spiritually.
We know who you are spiritually.
You are blessed and a blessing.
You are blessed and a blessing.
Your presence here makes a difference.
Your presence here makes a
Your
difference.
presence wherever you are makes a difference.
Your presence wherever you are makes a difference.
We're grateful you chose to be with us today.
We're grateful you chose us to be with us today.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
And so it is. In that green bag, you will find a welcome card, and if you fill it out and take it to the bookstore, which is through the doors and to your right, you'll receive another gift, it's a book. And so let's acknowledge our visitors. We're so pleased that you came. And announcements. Back from New York, who do we have?
Okay, listen up. I don't want to gotta repeat myself here.
Just got back from New York, so you'll have to excuse the accents.
Yo, what accents?
We'd like to remind you that the Conscious Connections is right here today after service from 12 to 12:30, and yes, childcare is provided.
So, Wednesday's Wisdom resumes this week at 7 p.m. and the Right Reverend Karen Allen's topic is Flames of Faith. So don't you forget about it.
I'm so sorry to report that there is no Parent Forum this month, but we'll see you in August, okay?
So this Friday the 13th, oh, that's a bad sign. It's the monthly meeting of One Spirit. This is the support group for our LGBTQ community. The meeting will be here from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Speak to Kathy Story for more information.
Next Sunday, the 15th, we are celebrating our new members. If you joined our center in the past year, we want to recognize you. Oh, I know you. So please plan to be here next Sunday. Talk to Aiden Greeny for more information.
Next Sunday is also our Food, Friends, and Fellowship potluck. So please join us after the service and remember to bring your favorite potluck dish here to share.
Oh, have you tried my knishes? My Leonard, he always loved my knishes.
Well, now that Leonard's gone, maybe you should join one of our friendship circles. They're starting in July, and there are still a few spaces available. So you go sign up today.
I don't know. I was thinking of taking one of those classes. We got 3 classes going on. There's a visioning class, which meets on Sundays from 12 to 2:30, and it's taught by Aiden Greeny.
Yeah, and Dr. Hedda's class, The Nature of Effective Prayer, meets Tuesdays from 6:30 to 9.
And there's a book study about the book Home with God. You know, that's where Leonard is. It's written by Neil Donald Walsh, and it meets on Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30, and the facilitator is Mary Brockton.
So please check the inserts in your bulletin for details about each class, including the cost, if any.
And this week's flowers are from Wayne Davis in celebration of his and Debbie's 30th anniversary.
So now help us welcome the Utes with This Little Light of Mine.